My wife demanded separate finances after marriage. When I lost my job, she refused to help with bills. Your problems aren't my concern, she said. Then she got laid off and threw a tantrum when I used her exact words against her. Hey everyone! Before we jump into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed the channel is losing some traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It's quick, free, and it helps us keep bringing you awesome content. Your support means the world. Let's keep this channel growing together. Thanks so much. Now let's start the video. Throwaway account for obvious reasons because my wife follows some subs. I, 35 male, and this is the wild story of how my soon-to-be ex-wife, Melissa, 29 female, learned the hard way that karma's a total B. Some background about me. I grew up in a blue-collar family in Michigan, where my dad worked at an auto factory for 30-plus years. Mom was a nurse who worked night shifts at the local hospital. They taught me the value of hard work and to always have each other's backs no matter what. They weren't rich by any means, but they pooled everything together, and we always had what we needed. My parents are still together after 40 years, still living in the same modest house, still sharing one checking account. I guess I had this naive idea that marriage meant being a team. Stupid me, right? I met Melissa at my college friend Matt's housewarming party about 7 years ago. She was gorgeous, like legitimately turn-heads beautiful, confident in a way I'd never seen before, and had this way of commanding attention in any room. I was instantly hooked like an idiot. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, making about $92,000 while I was in digital advertising, making around $72,000 at the time. We dated for a year, moved in together after that, and got engaged 6 months later. Everything seemed great on the surface. She was smart, ambitious, and we never seemed to fight about anything major. Looking back now, that was probably because I just went along with whatever she wanted to keep the peace. When we first got engaged and were planning the wedding, we had all the usual talks about money and future plans. I suggested what I thought was completely normal, combining our accounts after the wedding. Nothing wild, just a joint account for bills and shared expenses, while keeping smaller individual accounts for personal stuff. She laughed in my face. Not like a little chuckle, but a full-on laugh like I'd suggested we live in a cardboard box under a bridge. I didn't work this hard to hand over my paycheck to someone else, she said, sipping her fancy $15 green tea matcha whatever. My money is my money. Your money is yours. That's how successful people operate. My friend Stacy's husband tried to combine accounts, and now he questions every purchase she makes. That's financial abuse. Looking back now, this should have been a giant red flag slapping me across the face. But I was stupid in love and thought we could figure it out. Her parents had divorced when she was 12, and her mom always told her, never depend on a man financially. So I tried to be understanding. I even defended her position to my friends, saying she was just independent and cautious. God, I was a fucking idiot. We ended up with this insanely complicated system where we split everything proportional to what we made. I made $72,000. She made $92,000. So I paid 44% of shared expenses, and she paid 56%. Seemed fair enough on paper, but she insisted on everything being separate. Separate savings, separate credit cards, separate investments, even separate streaming accounts. We had this crazy detailed spreadsheet to track who paid for what down to the penny. My buddy Dave thought I was insane when I showed him how it all worked. Dude, you're not roommates. You're getting married, he told me one night while we were playing Call of Duty. This is weird as hell. My wife and I just have one account. Money comes in, bills get paid, who cares who bought what? But I defended Melissa, saying she was just financially responsible and independent. Dave just shook his head and said, your funeral, man. You wouldn't believe how ridiculous it got over time. We'd go out for dinner, logged in the spreadsheet, groceries. She'd literally divide a grocery bill by item, depending on who ate what more often. If I ate more cereal, I paid more for milk. I'm not even joking. One time, she made me pay extra for the water bill because I took longer showers. She actually timed them for a week to prove her point. I remember one time we were at Target, and I grabbed the toilet paper since we were out. When we got to the register, Melissa actually made the cashier split it as a separate transaction so I could pay for it. The cashier gave us this look like, what the hell is wrong with you people? But that was normal in our marriage at that point. Melissa's friend Jordan once asked us about our financial setup at a dinner party, and when Melissa proudly explained it, even Jordan looked uncomfortable. That sounds complicated, she said. Don't you guys ever just buy stuff for each other without keeping track? Melissa looked at her like she'd suggested we light our money on fire for fun. That's how people lose track of their finances, she said smugly. Even our wedding gifts got divided. She insisted we return all the household items people gave us and split the cash. We literally returned a KitchenAid mixer my aunt gave us so we could split the refund. My aunt still asks about that mixer sometimes, and I'm too embarrassed to tell her what happened to it. The system worked for about 3 years, though it was a major source of tension. If I was even a day late settling up our monthly expenses, she'd send me reminder texts. Not like, hey, don't forget, but screenshots of the spreadsheet with amounts highlighted. Then last year, everything fell apart when my company, Davidson Digital, went through a massive restructuring. We got acquired by some bigger fish from New York. They kept saying no changes planned in all the company meetings, but we all knew that was complete bull. 2 months after the acquisition, they cut 30% of the staff. The economy was total garbage, and despite having good performance reviews, I'd actually won an industry award the previous year. I was one of the unlucky ones who got the axe. The day it happened, I was called into a conference room where some HR lady I'd never seen before and my spineless manager Tom were waiting with a folder. Unfortunately, your position has been eliminated, the HR lady said, while Tom stared at his shoes. They gave me a pathetic 1-month severance, had me sign some papers, and then security watched me clean out my desk like I was some kind of criminal. I called Melissa immediately, still in shock, sitting in my car in the parking garage. Hey, so, I got laid off, I said, my voice shaking a little. There was a pause on the line. Seriously? What did you do? Not, I'm sorry, or are you okay? But what did you do? Like it must have been my fault somehow. I didn't do anything. They eliminated my whole team because of the acquisition. She sighed loudly. Well, how much severance did you get? Will it cover your part of the bills this month? That was her first concern. Not my well-being, not our future, but whether I could cover my portion of the bills. That should have been the moment I realized what I'd married, but I was too stressed about losing my job to see it clearly. Despite applying to literally 20 to 30 jobs every single day for weeks, I barely got any interviews. It was soul-crushing checking my email every morning and seeing nothing but rejection letters or silence. My buddy Chris, who worked at Google, tried to refer me, but they had a hiring freeze. My college friend Ryan, who had his own agency, couldn't bring me on because they were struggling too. My emergency savings started disappearing real quick, with rent, car payments, and all the bills still needing to get paid. After about a month of this, I approached Melissa about temporarily adjusting our bill splitting setup. I wasn't asking for a handout, just some flexibility until I found something new. Look, I'm running really low on savings, I told her one night after she got home from work. I'm wondering if we could adjust the bill split temporarily until I find something? I could pay you back later when I'm employed again. Her response still boils my blood when I think about it. Your career problems aren't my problems, she said, without even looking up from her phone, scrolling through Instagram photos of luxury vacations. I'm not touching my savings because you can't find work. Maybe try harder? My cousin's husband found a job in 2 weeks after he got laid off. I reminded her about our wedding vows. You know, that whole, for better or worse, in sickness and in health thing we both stood up and promised in front of our families. Her response? That's just stuff people say at weddings. Real life doesn't work that way. If we were having a baby or something important, that would be different. Apparently my livelihood wasn't important enough. Cool. So what exactly am I supposed to do if I run out of money before finding a job? I asked her. She shrugged. I don't know, Jake. Call your parents? Get a loan? Figure it out? I work hard for my money, and I'm not going to just give it away because Davidson decided to fire you. They didn't fire me. They eliminated my position. I corrected her. And we're not roommates. We're supposed to be partners. Partners who agreed to keep finances separate. She shot back. You agreed to this system. For 3 brutal months, I struggled to pay my portion of everything. I picked up random gig work driving for food delivery apps and doing TaskRabbit jobs. I sold a bunch of my stuff, including my gaming PC that I'd spent years upgrading, my dad's old vintage watch he gave me when I graduated college. That one hurt the most. And cut every expense I possibly could. I was eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches for dinner while working on job applications until 2 a.m. most nights. I canceled my gym membership, stopped getting haircuts, and started washing my dress shirts in the sink to avoid laundromat costs. I even sold my car and started taking the bus to interviews. Meanwhile, my darling wife carried on like nothing had changed in our household at all. You want to know the part that really killed me inside? While I was stressing about making rent and selling family heirlooms, Melissa didn't change her lifestyle at all. She kept shopping at Nordstrom and Sephora, dropping $300 on a single pair of shoes, going out for weekend brunches with her friends, where they'd spend $70 each on fancy coffee drinks and avocado toast. She never once invited me to these brunches, probably embarrassed of her jobless husband, and would come home with shopping bags while I was on the phone begging the electric company for an extension. "Did you really need another pair of shoes?" I asked once after she came home with a Nordstrom bag. She looked offended. "I'm not going to stop living my life because you lost your job, Jake. That's not fair to me. I earned this money." One night, I woke up at like 3 a.m. and found her side of the bed empty. I went to the living room and found her on her laptop, the screen illuminating her face in the dark. "What are you doing up?" I asked. She quickly minimized whatever screen she was looking at. "Just shopping." Couldn't sleep. The next day, a package arrived. She'd bought a $400 purse in the middle of the night while I was stressing about how to pay my half of the rent that was due in 3 days. The absolute worst was when she took a mental health weekend at some fancy spa resort about 2 hours away with her friend Amber. This wasn't just any spa. It was that place celebrities go to that costs like $600 a night. When I mentioned how that spa weekend probably cost more than what I owed for 3 whole months of utilities, she actually had the nerve to say, "Maybe that'll motivate you to find a job faster. Besides, I work hard and deserve nice things." Like I was just sitting on my ass playing video games all day, instead of sending out hundreds of applications and driving around complete strangers at midnight to make rent money. Her parents started getting involved too. Her mom Sandra would call me like every other day, sending me links to job postings that had absolutely nothing to do with my experience or skills. One time she sent me a listing for a night shift warehouse position 90 minutes away from our apartment. "This pays $17 an hour, Jake. Beggars can't be choosers," she texted with the link. "I have a marketing degree and 10 years of experience in digital advertising." When I tried explaining why it wasn't suitable, she got all offended and told Melissa I was being too proud and needed to humble myself. Meanwhile, Melissa's dad, Howard, would just text me links to YouTube videos with titles like "Millionaire Mindset, How to Never Be Broke Again." Real helpful stuff when your bank account is in double digits. I tried explaining to them that finding a job in my field was difficult right now because many agencies were downsizing due to clients cutting budgets. "Maybe this is a sign you should change careers," Sandra suggested during an unwanted FaceTime call. "My hairdresser's son started driving for Amazon, and now he makes very good money." The absolute worst moment came when I overheard Melissa talking to her sister Katie on the phone one night. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but our apartment isn't that big, and she wasn't exactly being quiet. "I don't know why Jake's struggling so much," she was saying, while painting her nails with some $60 nail polish. "It's not like advertising jobs are hard to find. I think he's just getting comfortable letting me carry the weight. Honestly, it's pathetic. Dad always said I should have married someone more ambitious." This coming from the woman who refused to help me with a single bill during this whole nightmare. I almost walked into the room to confront her, but I was so tired of fighting about money that I just went for a long walk instead. When I got back from my walk, she was getting ready to go out with her friends. "There's leftover pasta in the fridge if you want dinner," she said, applying lipstick in the hallway mirror. "I don't think I can keep doing this," I said quietly. She paused and looked at me. "Doing what?" "This marriage. It feels very one-sided right now." She rolled her eyes. "Don't be so dramatic, Jake. Everyone goes through rough patches. Just find a job, and everything will go back to normal." As if the problem was the job loss and not her complete lack of support or empathy. I finally landed a position at a smaller agency after about 3 months of searching. The pay was less than my old job, about $63,000, but I was just relieved to be employed again. Throughout this whole unemployment mess, Melissa never once offered to help with any of my expenses, even temporarily. Not a single, "Hey, I'll get dinner tonight," or "Let me help with your car payment this month." Not even when I sold my dad's watch, which she knew had huge sentimental value to me. My new job was at Fusion Creative, a smaller place but with some decent clients. I had to start rebuilding my career from a lower position, but my new boss, Rick, was actually a decent guy who understood the situation. "We've all been there," he said during my first week. "The industry can be brutal. Just glad to have someone with your experience on the team." I started putting in extra hours, networking like crazy, and slowly building back my professional reputation. The atmosphere at Fusion was actually much better than Davidson. People collaborated instead of competing, and Rick actually gave credit to his team instead of stealing their ideas like my old boss Tom. Every day I'd come home exhausted, but grateful to be employed again. Melissa never asked how my new job was going. She just wanted to know when I'd get paid so I could catch up on my portion of the expenses. Fast forward to about 4 months later. Melissa came home early on a Tuesday, which was unusual for her. Her eyes were all red and puffy. She'd been crying in her car. I could see her mascara was smeared. "What's wrong?" I asked, not really expecting anything serious. Maybe a fight with a coworker or a fender bender. They, they fired me, she said, dropping her designer purse on the floor. RX Parma is doing a complete restructuring, and they eliminated our entire regional sales team. They said it's not personal, but they're moving to a new territory model. I'd like to say I felt bad for her, but honestly, my first thought was, welcome to the club. I tried to muster some sympathy since I knew exactly how it felt. I'm sorry to hear that. Did they give you any severance? I asked. 2 months, she sniffled. But Jake, you don't understand. There are no jobs in pharma sales right now. Everyone's downsizing. Pfizer just laid off their entire Midwest team too. Turns out her pharmaceutical company had been struggling with a failed drug trial and decided to slash costs by cutting their sales force. Jobs in pharmaceutical sales were practically non-existent, with multiple companies downsizing at the same time. That evening, she sat me down at our kitchen table with her serious discussion face on. We need to talk about finances, she said, pulling out her laptop with a spreadsheet already open. I think while I'm in this transition period, we should temporarily combine resources. I'll pay back my portion once I find new employment, of course. But I think we need to be practical right now. I looked at her for a long moment, just taking in what she was saying. The absolute audacity, the hypocrisy, the double standard. I took a sip of my water and replied, "Your job problems aren't my problems." The look on her face, man, I wish I had taken a picture. Complete shock. Like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then she immediately started yelling about how we're married and we're supposed to be a team, and how I was being vindictive. Marriage is a partnership, Jake. How could you do this to me when I'm struggling? This is when I need you the most. I simply reminded her of her exact words from 4 months earlier. That's just stuff people say at weddings. Real life doesn't work that way. But this is different, she screamed, her face getting red. I supported you. In what way exactly did you support me? I asked calmly. Did you pay any of my bills? Did you buy groceries when I couldn't afford them? Did you skip a single brunch or shopping trip to help our household? She had no answer for that. She just stared at me, mouth opening and closing like a fish. What am I supposed to do? She finally asked. The same thing I did, I replied. Cut expenses, sell stuff. Look for any job that will pay the bills until you find something in your field. Use your savings. Figure it out. You're enjoying this, aren't you? She accused. No more than you enjoyed watching me struggle, I said. I'm just following the rules you created. She stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door. I heard her on the phone immediately after, no doubt calling in reinforcements. She stayed in the bedroom for hours. I figured she needed space, so I just made dinner for myself and watched some TV. About 8 p.m., there was a loud knock at our apartment door. I opened it to find her mother Sandra in tow with Katie, her sister, right behind them. Sandra pushed past me without even saying hello. Where is she? She demanded. Bedroom, I said, stepping aside. Katie glared at me as she passed. You should be ashamed, she muttered. They went to console Melissa while I sat on the couch, knowing what was coming. Sure enough, about 10 minutes later, all three of them emerged for the attack. Sandra immediately started berating me about not supporting my wife during a difficult time, calling me selfish and heartless. Katie stood there nodding along with every word her mom said. A real man steps up when his wife is in need, Sandra said, wagging her finger in my face. This is disgraceful behavior, Jake. Her father and I raised her to expect better. I remained calm, which probably pissed them off even more, and simply asked where all this support was when I was struggling. That was completely different, Sandra insisted, her voice getting higher like it does when she knows she's on shaky ground. Melissa has always been responsible with money. Your situation was your own fault for not having more savings or finding a job faster. Mom's right, Katie chimed in. Men and women are different. Men are supposed to be providers. I laughed. So, gender equality only applies when it benefits you? Interesting take. Don't twist our words, Sandra snapped. This isn't about gender. It's about doing the right thing. What was the right thing when I lost my job? I asked. When I had to sell my dad's watch to pay bills? When I was eating ramen for dinner while Melissa was at spas? That's not fair, Melissa said. I worked hard for that money. And I didn't? I asked. I worked just as hard as you did. But when I needed support, not even financial, just emotional support, you treated me like I was a failure. I told them all that my decision was final. Melissa would continue paying her portion of our expenses from her savings and severance, just as I had done during my unemployment. After all, she had more in savings than I did since she always earned more and had less expenses during my unemployment period. I turned to Melissa. You created this system. You insisted on it. You enforced it when it benefited you. Now you can live with it. Sandra threatened to call my parents to tell them how I was treating their daughter, which I found hilarious considering my parents had witnessed Melissa's behavior during my unemployment. My mom had actually offered to help us with bills, which Melissa declined because she didn't want to mix family and finances. The irony. Call them, I said. My parents already know everything. They saw how you treated me when I was down. My mom offered to help us and you turned her down, Melissa. Remember that? Melissa had the decency to look embarrassed at that point. This conversation is over, I said. Melissa knows the terms. She pays her share just like I paid mine. If that doesn't work for her, she's welcome to find other living arrangements. Sandra looked like she might have a stroke. You would kick my daughter out? I didn't say that, I replied. I said she's welcome to leave if she doesn't like the financial arrangement she created. They left shortly after, Sandra shooting daggers at me with her eyes, while Katie supported a crying Melissa. It was dramatic and over the top, like something from a bad reality show. It's been 5 days since then. Melissa has barely spoken to me, except to call me heartless and cruel when she passes me in the hall. Her mother keeps sending me these texts about how I'm not a real man, and how I'll regret this behavior. One particularly nasty text from Sandra read, "A real man would never let his wife suffer. My husband would never treat me this way." I almost replied with, maybe that's why Howard looks like he's ready for the grave at 60, but decided to take the high road and not respond. Meanwhile, her father Howard, who's usually pretty vocal with his opinions, called me yesterday. I expected more of the same, but instead he just said, she's just like her mother. They never think rules apply to them. Sandra did the same thing to me for 35 years. That conversation with Howard was eye-opening. For the first time, I saw what my future might look like if I stayed in this marriage. 35 years of double standards and manipulation, ending up a defeated shell of a man like Howard. I'm pretty sure our marriage isn't going to survive this. But honestly, I'm not sure I want it to anymore. Didn't expect my post to blow up like this. Thanks for all the comments and support. Things have gotten even crazier in the past couple weeks, and the truth about Melissa has started coming out in ways I never expected. First, she's been telling all our mutual friends that I'm financially abusing her during her time of need. Half of them have sent me these concerned messages or called to check in. My friend Jason's wife, Rebecca, who's always been friends with Melissa, even asked if I was withholding money to control her. The narrative she was spinning made me sound like some kind of monster. When I explained the full story with the context of what happened during my unemployment, most of them get awkwardly quiet or change the subject real quick. One friend, Tyler, who's always been closer to Melissa than to me, actually apologized after hearing my side. Dude, she told everyone you were the one who insisted on separate finances from the beginning, he said, looking genuinely shocked. She said you're using her job loss as revenge because you're bitter about your career. I showed him the actual spreadsheet she had created with our financial agreement, with her name right there as the document creator. His eyes went wide. Man, I'm sorry I even doubted you, he said. That's messed up. I've started keeping detailed records of our conversations after this. I'd been doing it casually since my own unemployment, when she'd say particularly nasty stuff, but now I'm recording dates, times, and exact quotes. My gut was telling me I'd need this documentation later. Then things got really interesting. My buddy Eric works at a bank. Not Melissa's bank, but stay with me. We were having lunch and I was venting about the situation when he got this weird look on his face. Dude, how much did you say Melissa has in savings? He asked cautiously. I told him she always claimed to have about $50,000 in her emergency fund plus investments. He looked skeptical. And she wouldn't help you with a single bill during your unemployment? That doesn't add up. Turns out Eric had seen Melissa at his bank a few months ago, arguing with a manager about overdraft fees. He didn't think much of it at the time, but now it clicked. I don't want to violate any privacy rules, he said carefully, but I will say that people who have $50,000 in savings don't usually fight over $35 overdraft fees. They just pay them. My wife's shopping habits haven't changed at all, despite her unemployment. Yesterday, she came home with several bags from Tory Burch and Lululemon. When I raised an eyebrow, she snapped, I'm using my money that I saved, unlike some people. But I started noticing weird things. She'd hide mail. She'd take phone calls outside the apartment, walking up and down the hallway. And then I found it. A credit card statement she'd accidentally left in the printer, showing over $28,000 in debt with minimum payments being made. This from the woman who lectured me about financial responsibility for years? I did more digging while she was out one day interviewing. I know, probably not the most ethical thing, but at this point I felt like I needed to know what I was really dealing with. I found statements for 3 more credit cards, all nearly maxed out. A past due notice for her car payment. A letter from a collection agency for a medical bill from 2 years ago. The woman who had made me feel financially inferior for years was completely broke. All that shopping, all those brunches, all those spa weekends, none of it was coming from her savings. It was all debt. Last night we had what I thought might be a breakthrough. She sat down and actually acknowledged that she had been unsupportive during my unemployment. I know I wasn't there for you the way I should have been, she said softly. I was scared and selfish. For a moment, I thought we might actually have a productive conversation. Then she followed it up with, but you have to understand, when you lost your job, your company was just doing normal layoffs. When I lost mine, they specifically targeted my department because they're sexist. It's completely different. I asked how that made any practical difference to our financial situation. Her response? My job loss was unfair and targeted. Yours was just business. They valued men in your company more than women in mine. So my situation is actually discrimination. This was news to me since her boss was a woman, and the CEO of her company was also a woman. But apparently everyone was sexist except her. I've scheduled a consultation with a divorce attorney next week. Not rushing into anything, but I want to know where I stand. The most revealing moment came 2 days ago, when Sandra organized a family meeting at our home, without even asking me first. She arrived with Howard, Katie, and Katie's husband Ben, apparently planning to gang up and convince me to do the right thing. What they didn't count on was Ben actually taking my side. He pointed out that the financial arrangement had been Melissa's idea from the beginning, and that applying the same rules to both of us wasn't unfair. Sandra actually said, men and women are different. A husband should provide for his wife in times of need. To which Ben replied, so gender equality only applies when it benefits women? The room went dead quiet. Howard looked down at his hands with this sad, resigned expression I'll never forget. I realized he'd been living with this double standard for decades. After everyone left, I did some serious digging. I found past due notices for Melissa's car payments hidden in her desk drawer. Her credit card statements showed huge balances. Her substantial savings she'd bragged about? Nowhere to be found. The woman who'd made me feel financially inferior for years was completely broke. When I confronted her about it, she broke down. I didn't want you to know, she sobbed. I was supposed to be the responsible one. You've been lying to me our entire marriage? I asked, genuinely shocked at the scale of deception. Not lying, just not telling you everything, she said, wiping her eyes. My job paid well, but sales is up and down. Some months were good, some weren't. I had to keep up appearances. Keep up appearances? For who? Me? I'm your husband. For everyone. My parents, my friends, myself. I couldn't be the failure in the family. Katie's husband makes partner at his law firm. My cousin buys a house in the suburbs. And what do I have? I needed to look successful too. And there it was. Our entire marriage had been built on an image. Not love, not partnership, but keeping up appearances. I felt like I didn't even know the woman sitting in front of me. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and holy shit has my life changed. Buckle up, because this gets wild. After discovering Melissa's financial disaster, I met with a divorce attorney who gave me some interesting advice. Don't tip your hand yet, he said. Let's see how deep this rabbit hole goes. I followed his advice and started playing detective. What I discovered was shocking. Melissa wasn't just in a little debt. She was completely underwater. Multiple maxed out credit cards. Car payment 3 months behind. Personal loans from sketchy online lenders. All while maintaining her image as Ms. Financial Responsibility. But the real bombshell, she'd been taking money from our joint emergency fund, the only joint account we had, with about $8,000 in it for household emergencies, during my unemployment to fund her shopping addiction. This whole time she was lecturing me about financial responsibility, she was secretly draining our emergency fund to buy designer bags and $300 brunches. I found bank statements showing withdrawals on the exact same days she'd come home with shopping bags. She'd taken out nearly $5,000 during my unemployment, money that could have helped me avoid selling my dad's watch or picking up those late-night delivery gigs. I documented everything quietly. My attorney was building a solid case for financial fraud in our marriage. This isn't just about the divorce, he explained. This is about building a narrative for the judge about who was actually financially responsible in this marriage. About 2 weeks after my discovery, Melissa's car was repossessed. She called me hysterically crying from the parking lot at her gym. Jake, my car is gone. Someone stole it, she sobbed into the phone. Was it a guy with a tow truck? I asked calmly. Yes! How did you know? Because cars get repossessed when you don't make payments for 3 months. It wasn't stolen, Melissa. The bank took it back. Silence on the other end of the line. Then more crying. I calmly drove over, picked her up, and took her home without saying much. That night, she finally broke down and admitted everything. She was over $60,000 in debt, had no savings whatsoever, and had been living a complete financial lie our entire marriage. She'd been maintaining her lifestyle through credit card debt and was now completely screwed with no income. "I need your help, Jake," she sobbed. "I know I don't deserve it, but I have nowhere else to turn. My parents can't help. Dad's business is struggling." That's when I executed my plan. "I'll help you," I said calmly. "But we're going to do things my way now." I presented her with a financial recovery plan I'd prepared with my attorney's guidance. It included she would surrender all her credit cards to me. I would create a strict allowance system for her basic needs. She would attend financial counseling. She would get a job, any job, within 2 weeks, even if it meant working retail or food service. She would write a letter explaining the full truth to everyone she had lied to about our situation. She agreed immediately, desperate for help. What she didn't realize was that I had zero intention of staying in this marriage. I was just buying time to protect myself financially and gather evidence. The next day, Sandra called me, sobbing and apologizing. Turns out Howard's business was failing because Sandra had been secretly taking money from it for years to help fund Melissa's lifestyle. The manipulation ran in the family. "Please help my daughter," she begged. "We made a terrible mistake raising her to think money works this way." "I'll help her get back on her feet," I said. "But there are going to be major changes." For the next month, I played the role of financial savior. I helped Melissa get a job at a local coffee shop, a huge step down from her pharma sales career. I monitored her spending and kept her on a tight budget. I even attended financial counseling sessions with her, where the counselor, who knew my real plan, helped hammer home how toxic her behavior had been. Meanwhile, I was moving money, documenting everything, and preparing for my exit with my attorney's guidance. The real revenge came when Melissa had to face our friends. As part of her recovery plan, she had to confess everything to the friends she'd lied to about me. She had to admit that she'd been financially irresponsible while portraying herself as a victim. The social humiliation was crushing for someone who had built her entire identity around success and status. One night, after she'd been particularly compliant and grateful for my help, I sat her down and slid a folder across the table. "What's this?" she asked. "Divorce papers," I replied calmly. "I've been working with an attorney for weeks. Everything is documented. Your lies, your debt, your theft from our emergency fund. You can fight it, but then everyone will know everything in court documents. Or you can sign for a quick, clean break where I don't pursue you for the money you stole from me." The look on her face was priceless. Complete shock, then understanding, then defeat. You planned this all along?" she whispered. "I learned from the best," I replied. "You taught me that marriage isn't about partnership. It's about looking out for yourself. So that's what I'm doing." She signed the papers that night. 3 days later, I moved into my new apartment that I'd secretly rented weeks before. The aftermath has been fascinating. Melissa had to move back in with her parents since she couldn't afford our apartment on a barista's salary. Howard finally grew a spine and left Sandra, saying my situation made him realize he didn't want to spend another 35 years being financially manipulated. Katie and Ben are in marriage counseling after he realized he was headed down the same path as his father-in-law. My life has actually improved dramatically. Without Melissa's toxic influence, I've reconnected with old friends, started dating again, nothing serious yet, and even received a promotion at work. My new boss, Rick, values my dedication and has put me on track for a leadership position. I ran into Melissa at a grocery store last week. She looked terrible, stressed, thin, with dark circles under her eyes. She was counting coupons while shopping in the clearance section. When she saw me, she froze. "How's the financial independence working out?" I asked with a smile. She just stared at the ground. "I deserve this," she finally said. "But I need help, Jake. My parents are fighting all the time. Dad's moved out. Mom can't support me. I've learned my lesson. Could we maybe try again? I still love you." I laughed. Not meanly, just genuinely amused at the audacity. "Your problems aren't my problems," I said, echoing her words from months ago. "That's just real life." I walked away feeling lighter than I had in years. Sometimes karma takes a while, but when it hits hard. The funny thing? I'm not even angry anymore. I actually feel grateful in a weird way. Melissa taught me an important lesson about standing up for myself and recognizing toxic people. Instead of spending decades in a one-sided marriage like Howard, I'm free, financially stable, and actually happy for the first time in years. Sometimes the trash takes itself out.